Our best friend Mike has just been annihilated with a homing missile. These are very sad times. As a long-time subscriber of the channel, his absence will be one of misery. I need to let out some steam before I confront Sadler, so before I take my anger out on Ada, let's see if I can snipe some of these boxes in the distance. Whoa, what on earth is this? There's a man waving back at us. His signature green coat and intense smile is inescapable, intriguing the lives of many, including the entire fanbase when he was first discovered not too long ago. But who really is this man, and what is he doing here of all places? Aside from the obscure mysteries and eccentric lore videos, there's many topics that I've yet to cover on this channel. Primarily things like Easter eggs and secrets have inadvertently taken a backseat for a while. But there's just so many strange things in RE4, finds that weren't discovered until over a decade after the game's original release, locations that are completely closed off to the player, forever remaining an undisclosed piece of RE4's universe and its history. In this video, I wanted to try and uncover said secrets in a small compilation, using Out of Bounds to see what lies beyond, and so I don't have to constantly point a gun in this guy's face. It's like aiming at the dog, it just feels horrible doing it. The area where you encounter this man takes place in 5-4, directly after Mike's aforementioned death. A well-detailed set of assets resembling some sort of building site are visible from afar. Many of these far distance features are often just 2D sprites or very low resolution images stretched out to resemble an environment. But there was obviously a lot of effort that went into making this place in particular, as insignificant as it may appear from far away. It's a surprise that it took people a very long time to find it. Since 2017, there has been a lot of theories on who this person in the green jacket was. The most popular opinion is that they are either a developer of the game or a friend of one of them. Clearly, the satirical expression on his face hints that this was some kind of inside joke. It was done by one of the art designers for a laugh, and they didn't ever intend for anyone to eventually find it. Evidently, this plan worked very well. Another good theory I've seen is that the 2D sprite used for this image was an early placeholder for the targets at the shooting gallery. This guy could have been intended to stand alongside Ashley and the Ganados for a more fleshed out experience, but was removed before the game's release. You can find many things out of bounds in RE4. Ammo, Ada's shotgun. You don't even need to use cheats to obtain this legitimately in Leon's campaign. Key items and letters can be found underneath the map. They're everywhere, to be honest. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was a result of an asset dump. But there's only one of them, and the way he's been positioned to wave at the camera seems overtly intentional. I doubt this is the case. If anything, he could have still been a target practice prototype at the beginning, before being later repurposed into an Easter egg. This is more likely. I do have problems with the terrible cropping, which contradicts an attempt to use this as an in-game feature. It seems as if this was placed here on a second's notice and didn't take much time at all. But I don't really care. I want to find who this person is. The best place to start looking is the end credits, which in itself has been the subject of many mysteries and discoveries on the channel, specifically aiding my research into the Dr. Salvador origin story, as well as others. All we have to do is track down some of these art designers until we find a match. Starting off with the art production team, we can find their occupational credits on various websites. Unfortunately, there's a little to no information beyond this. Most of them lack a picture. Those that do don't look anything like the man in the jacket. So we move on to the game designers. The first two are the same, but before losing hope altogether, we bring our focus to this guy. Immediately, he looks like a match. Reverse image searching one picture leads us to the original internet forum from 2017, around the same time when this mystery was first discovered. Scrolling down far enough, we see that someone has already beaten us to it, confirming that this man does indeed look like the guy in the jacket. I think this is good enough for me. When looking at these two images side by side, I believe that they are the same person, but because it's so low resolution, we can never be 100% sure. Nevertheless, this is a mystery that brought me back to the game when I was a kid, and ultimately what made me start making videos in the first place. I may attempt to tackle this mystery more in depth in the future also. Our next mystery brings us to the Bella Sisters' home, the village camp, where the majority of the Ganado population are also located. This place is one of the only optional stops in the game. Personally, I prefer the quick detour through El Gigante's arena myself, but I can't help but visit this place every couple of playthroughs. Just after disposing of Dr. Salvador's nurses, there's a small room on the right hand side after opening the camp entrance. It's here where you can jump down the hatch. This leads to a dark, bloody basement, seemingly irrelevant at first glance besides some empty boxes. That's until we see this pathway at the end that's blocked off for no apparent reason. So where does this actually lead, and what was its original intention? The hatch even being here in the first place has always been creepy to me. Unlike the secret entrance to the church, this one feels like no one was ever supposed to find it. The distinct blood on the walls and the floor suggests that the basement wasn't only used as a secret passage to what I'm going to assume was the mine underneath the castle. I think people were also dragged down here and subject to the same treatment as Leon and Lewis at the beginning of the game, only they weren't as lucky. Upside down, the blood almost looks like an insignia. The path leading deeper into this room has clearly been blocked off intentionally. It's so mysterious and weird that even the HD Projekt team repurposed this area into their museum. It's all worth it just for the silencer though. But there had to be a reason for this opening to exist in the first place. If this was just another scrapped asset, intended as a small expansion area, they would have just covered it up with a wall. They wouldn't have left it like this. With the help of the camera, we can see that this is still the case. The part that isn't visible has been since sealed off, meaning this path has to be lore relevant in some way, besides being here as intrigue. This isn't the only blocked entrance that leads further into the dungeon. The mine outside is also blocked with this familiar pile of logs. The villagers were definitely hiding something down here, but we don't know what. The only theory I have is that this path does connect to the excavation site under the castle. This would explain why village Ganados are present much further on in the game. They boarded these up behind them to avoid suspicion. The only way Leon made his way to the mine in the first place was when he fell down the pitfall and had to climb his way out. Finding it was actually a mistake. Other than that, there is very little entrances to the mine in general, so I understand their motive to try and cease traffic coming from every direction, primarily working in and out of the castle, which is a lot more safe than the campsite where outsiders are much more likely to stumble across it by accident. Dr. Salvador and his bloody masked cousin also work down here. I think they could have had something to do with all of this blood. Maybe they drag people down here in secret and perform rituals on them. In the place where Las Plagas was first discovered, this bloody masked lunatic has been struck with severe PTSD. I can only imagine the kind of things that happen down here, let alone beyond this path. Next, we have one of the most notorious inconsistencies in the game. Of course, we are talking about the magic window, a pane of glass that can only be seen from the interior of this building, yet when looking at it from the outside, it's suddenly gone. Surprisingly, this is probably the most popular thing in the entire list, because it can be seen near the beginning of the game, inside the safe room, with Serenity's drone elevating its presence even more. There isn't really a mystery in connection to this window, it's merely an ambiguity, and a fun one at that. Many of RE4's levels are extremely short due to the limitations of the time. The experience is assisted with seamless load screens between doors and ladders, where a completely different scene is rendered altogether, all separate entities from one another. To make up for this, the game uses connectivity via recreating assets, often far off in the distance for detail and consistency. As said before, most of these are 2D images or low resolution copies, such as this area here. This depiction looks exactly like the real one, and is detailed in such a way that makes the world feel more open than it actually is. But when we make our way down here a few minutes later, it's another sequence entirely. When applied to the window after making our way inside of the safe room, it becomes more obvious and much more interesting. They've taken an image of the right side of the farm and stretched it out to resemble a view from the outside. Without the help of the camera, this looks perfectly fine when looking at it normally. It's this sort of genius level design that RE4 doesn't get enough credit for. I can't believe they put in this much effort yet forgot to add a window on the other side. Coming back here at night is even better. There isn't a rain effect, but the image has been made dark on purpose to set the mood congruent with this stretch of the game. The lightning is achieved with a flickering effect on the window, enough to give the illusion of connectivity. Because we love to speak nonsense on this channel, I do have an in-game theory for why this window doesn't exist. I think this is the dog's portal to the other world, and only he has the ability to see the window from the other side of the wall. Dogs are said to be able to see things that humans cannot, and are very spiritual animals. So it's not far-fetched to consider that this window is supernatural, and that the dog is the only one who can see it or travel between them. Going back to the island for a moment, the vast majority of Regenerador confrontations take place in the hospital. Some are in the operating theatre, some down the waste disposal vent, and a couple have even wandered all the way to the hospital exit where Ashley operates the truck. However, you can find one of them in the prison area in 5-4, separated from all the others. It has been the theme for many theories and speculations as to his confinement. It must have been one of great importance. Maybe it was the first successful experiment. Maybe it really did travel all this way, beyond the capabilities of its friends, before being caught and locked up until further notice, later left abandoned when the prison was abolished and turned into a training facility. The prison is also one of the scariest locations in the game. The sack creature in the bin is the main attraction, but there's so much oddities that conflict with one another. The theory that the Regenerador was a successful prototype is credible, judging by these obvious failed masses of biological waste that hang from the adjacent cells. One of these has survived the experiment by the looks of it. When examining the door of this cell, the bars are malformed. Was someone trying to break it out, or do the Regenerators have the strength to do this themselves? I believe it could have done this on its own, because why is it still here, willingly rotting in this open cell instead of trying to escape? Potentially, this door could have already been broken long before the Regenerador was here, but this only raises more questions than it answers. For now, I don't know why the cell has been forcefully broken into, or why this creature is here at all, but I'd love to make a full video on this in the future. I thought I'd just throw in a bonus secret for the 5 people still watching the video. Remember when I said that the game often depicts future areas before you've had the chance to reach them? This is true for the village and the castle, giving you amazing views from the cliffs, views from the castle interior of even more castles that we never actually come across in the game. Well, until recently, I thought that once you reach the island, you can never actually see the preceding areas ever again, but I was wrong. From this starting location, you can just make out the castle in the distance. From far away, it looks just as detailed as always. Zooming in the camera further and we can see the texture in all of its glory. It may be another 2D sprite, but I feel like I can just take the speedboat back to the castle on a whim and find that dog once and for all.